All right, hey guys, welcome back to Bending the Narrative. Each week we dive into Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender live action series. And while you can find our original thoughts on the series and our overall thoughts, you can find that in our first episode. But throughout book one, we will be discussing in further detail how each episode compares to its live action counterpart. Alex, let's start with you.
Yeah, so okay. This one's weird because they took a lot of stuff like they introduced Jet earlier. They put him in the King of Omashu episode,
Hmm.
which I have now said a couple of times. I've been on the record. I, again, in a vacuum, do really enjoy that episode. I think that it works in the like intrigue side of things, and like it's an interesting blend of like
Yeah.
the way that Jet and the Freedom Fighters are operating there, and Jet's also a super strong character in the live action series too. Like they do port over his like personality and his like radical extremism and like what he's about and like all of that stuff really successfully, I think. Like
Yeah,
I
like I think
I
this is the one thing that works.
I feel like yeah, of the like direct comparisons character wise to make from animation to live action, he's arguably the strongest one because like they don't really aside from the like time as far as like when he's introduced and also location of where he's introduced being completely different, his character still really is the same
Hmm.
core thing and operates the same way. So I
And
feel
he
like that's
feels
good.
realistic. Like he feels very
Yeah.
like it matches. I can believe it. I can believe
Hmm.
somebody acts this way. He
Yeah.
feels very palpable. He doesn't feel like a characterization or anything or
Yeah. It's so
something
so like all of
far-fetched.
that for him I think is really good. He works. It's just the you again by cutting things like they do, you lose one the location of the forest and their tree village and all of that stuff, which we spent a good portion talking about how epic all of that is and how great all of that
Hmm.
looks. And I would have loved to see that in live action. That would have been cool because I
But
think one
no.
of like one of the things I feel like for half of the sets or for the locations and the live action stuff, it did look awesome and it was really cool to see like transported or translated to live action.
Hmm.
Even though ironically, a lot of the time that I thought they looked the best is when you get the full like wide shots that are just pure VFX, so it's just
Yeah,
animation.
which
So
is animated.
like so there's
Turns
that.
out I like the parts of the live action that are animated.
Yeah, which like go figure. But it still would have been cool to see that on that kind of scale and in the more even though I do think there's a lot of debate about this too, just generally in the industry about like the push for realism and stuff not necessarily being the
Hmm.
direction that we should go. But it would have been cool still, I think, in this instance to see that. Like I would have liked but then also I'm thinking about it, I'm like, man, you would have lost like the stylized nature of it. Nature
Yes.
double pun there because they're in nature. But you would have lost that a little bit if you do like translate that to live action. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm happy we didn't see that. But yeah, so it's a bummer that we lose that side of his introduction and like the location and stuff for that.
Hmm.
And you also then are see, I don't know. It's interesting because you can see the lines that they like the lines of logic that they followed as far as you do still get him wanting to blow stuff up so that stays the same, right?
Yeah.
And like using that to do that, so you get
He
that
is a
you get
manipulator girl boss.
yeah, like
He
you
is.
get the Katara immediately like falling
Yeah.
for him and following him. You get
And I do
Sokka
like
immediately being like
I
no.
really in the live action I'm like, yeah, I see how you did that, Katara. I get it.
Yeah,
Because
I mean
once
he's
again,
great.
Sebastian Amoruso, hit my line. You could
We
DM
love him.
me
He
any day.
nailed it.
I am
Crushed
single,
it.
Sebastian, for you.
Crushed it as Jet. I mean, yeah,
Crushed
he's
it.
great. His introduction is amazing. Like he's super charismatic and like you can see why people follow him. Like he's
Hmm.
awesome. And so like that all works and you keep the through line of him wanting to blow stuff up. You also keep the through line of him blowing Earth Kingdom stuff up instead of a village that's
Yes.
just part of
Hmm.
Omashu, which works. Um
Hmm.
he just escalates it to a whole new level and is like, I'm gonna take out the
Hmm.
king. like and
Yeah, I was like, whoa,
you're like, all right, man, that's a little like now
radical.
you're not even yeah, it's a very it makes it harder. See, that's the thing that I just thought about too. It makes it harder for him to have the internal justification for doing it because
Hmm.
in the animated version, he can still justify it by being like, we're taking out the Fire Nation soldiers, as opposed to in
Hmm.
the live action one, he's like, well, these people in charge. have let the corruption fester and rot, and they're all part
Mm-hmm.
of the problem. And it's a
Yeah.
less direct, like, even though obviously his logic
Mm-hmm.
in the animated series is still flawed because like he's going to kill innocent people
Yeah.
in doing what he's trying to do, you can see more of the like rationale that
You
he has
can,
there, because
yeah,
he's
you
like
could
taking out direct Fire
understand it
Nation
more. It's
people.
more palpable, but
Yeah,
mhm.
whereas in the live
It's too
action
much
one,
of a
it's like,
leap,
yeah, it's like, oh well,
actually.
the majority of these people actually are probably innocent, as opposed to like he's
Yeah.
taking out direct Fire Nation people. And so like that's a weird thing that they kind of do there, which is not the best. But then they also just like, and again, you're just combining so many different things into this episode. Like we get the like machinist in there, which is like throwing
Mm-hmm.
him in with them is a weird thing. And
It's a
like,
lot.
yeah, it just is like, again, where like his, it takes the focus away from him and like spreads it out to like five different things in the episode,
Yeah.
as opposed to just being about Jet and the Freedom Fighters and Sokka and
Mm-hmm.
Katara and what they're doing. As opposed to in the live action, it's like we have the secret tunnels and the badger moles
Oh,
and the king
and
of Omashu, and Aang's doing the boomy stuff on the side instead of Aang being more involved with Jet and
in
things like
this,
that.
yeah.
And it's like we're losing it. We're losing the plot completely.
We're literally, I was like, we're just doing cameos. We're just cosplaying at this point. This is just
Yeah,
one giant, like, fun, let's have everybody and filming. It's just cosplay at this point. We're just hanging
yeah, and
around.
it's I struggle so hard again, and I've said it so many times now with the episode. 'Cause I think that in a vacuum, just the episode on its like on its own is a
Mm-hmm.
strong political intrigue. Like I like the spy stuff that they got
Yeah.
going on. Like I
I did
like
like
that,
that. That was a great use of that. That was a
like there's
smart
the
choice.
unraveling of like all the different layers of stuff when the characters find out different things, and like how they find out makes sense, and like you get it all leading together. But then when you zoom out again and look at the bigger picture and look at how it compares to the way that things are structured and set up in the animated version, uh, you kind of you messed up a lot there actually. Like that's not really, there's probably a reason they did it this way in the animated one.
Yeah, because
Why
it
are you doing
makes
this? I
sense.
don't, yeah, it's odd. And it's just, it's again a weird like runtime conundrum that I feel like they come into, where it's like they had the time, they had the space, but instead, because of the other decisions they made and everything around it, it like impacts how this is viewed, and then it'll impact
Yeah.
later things that come in too. And so I'm just like, what are we doing? I will say the Freedom Fighters also though themselves
I
are
do
like,
love the freedom fighters. They
they're
great
great.
casting. Great
Yeah, like
casting.
they're cast super well. They all play their parts super well. Again, as we said, Jet crushes it. We love him.
Hmm.
We love to hate him. He's
We
amazing.
love to
Just
hate
like,
him. Like
yeah.
he's a great bad character. I love
Hmm.
somebody made a comment. I forget where I saw it, but somebody said like his actions are understandable, but they're not justifiable. And I was like,
Yeah,
that's the perfect way to put it.
which is important. That's such
That's
an important thing to
important.
do for
Yeah.
your characters. Like even though like worst villains, like you should be able to, if you put yourself in their shoes, follow their logic, and it should make sense.
Yes.
And
Oh,
like you
bingo.
can you
Like
can do that, and they do. They, to their credit, that is present in the live action version.
mhm.
It's very understandable how he gets to his points, even
Which yeah,
though
we got
the es-
that. Thank
the
God.
escalation falls a little bit, like is a little bit more confusing, because like we said, there's a bigger leap in what he's choosing
Hmm.
to destroy. You're like, all right, man, you're
Yeah.
gonna take out the entire, like I think they actually comment on this in, I want to say I think they comment on this. I might be giving them too much credit, but I feel like they do comment on the fact that like, okay, well, what do you like? What happens after you take out all those people, like, and take out the
Yeah.
entire like ruling class and like party of Omashu? Like, what then?
Hmm.
Like, how is that going to
Like
solve
who's gonna
anything?
rule?
Yeah,
Hmm.
like what are you actually doing aside from just like taking out your anger and blowing stuff up? And it's like, yeah, you gotta think things through a little bit more than that, man. Like,
You gotta think things
which
through.
which also goes to Sokka's point in the anime thing, where he's like, you don't want to have freed anyone; they would have all been dead, bro. Like, you're
Yeah.
not, like, that's not solving the problem. You're just making things worse for everyone.
Hey, Aspect listener. Enjoying the show?
Then be sure to subscribe here on The Aspect so you never miss an episode.
And check out more episodes and clips on our playlist here.
Thanks so much for watching, and
Lemio Hotman.